Continue recording. Okay, great. And I want to welcome everybody. We're going to have some slides here in a few moments, but we're excited to have Wanda Green with us from the Tom Green County Library System. A little bit of a mouthful there, but I've learned it because I've been working with Wanda for a couple of years now through the Now Set My Library project. And we have worked very closely together on a specific project in that realm called the Patron Experience Pilot. But I've learned a lot about Wanda's amazing library and all the great stuff that she has been doing there, even before the 5-year NASA project that we are closing in on the end. But yeah, so she's done a lot over the years, and this beautiful library there in San Angelo, Texas. And it's actually a part of a system, 3 libraries, right? Wanda, it's 3. Okay. And her library's in the right downtown San Angelo. So it's kind of a neat spot in the old department store, which kind of you recognize, right? From the get-go. It's got these, what year was that built, Wanda? Do you know? It's got these neat windows. It kind of reminds me of like the 60s, 70s.
Yes, I think it was built in the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then closed in the 80s and sat vacant for 30 years.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right, Brittany, I'm looking at the chat here, and no problem. Eat your lunch. I almost missed my lunch today, so I totally get it. Yes, and yeah, all kinds of, I can see your chat there, Barb, with the mask hiding all kinds of things. All right, I'm gonna start sharing my screen here. We're gonna see some slides, and let's get the show going here, literally. All right. So let me know if you can't see that. And let's see. I know some of the things I can't see on my screen but anyways, if someone has a chat, if you could speak up and let me know, or if Bet is going to watch the chat for us. So be great. So yes, we are talking today about outdoor activities in the community during COVID-19. I was hoping when we sort of talked about setting up these webinars that cases might be down, but cases are going up, right? But I know libraries and Cornerstones, I'm going to talk a little bit about Cornerstones here in a moment. Most of you I know, and you probably know a little bit about Cornerstones. I'll go into that just briefly. But I know library staff, you guys and others, plan 6 months in advance, some 3 months, but it's something to think about now, and for 3-6 months from now when spring is here as well. Because I do think, and from what we see, we're going to be probably in this mode of distancing and masking for a while. It's maybe a year, maybe longer. I don't know. No one seems to really know, but I think it's good to take a good view to see what's out there and talk to folks who have been doing some great work in this area, such as Wanda. So I'm going to present a little bit today. Betta Stoddard, who's with us as well with Cornerstones of Science, she's going to present a little bit on a story walk that we have here in Maine. And Wanda Green at the Tom Green County Library System in San Angelo, Texas, will be presenting. She's the assistant director at the system there. All right, let's see. So just a little bit of housekeeping. So we are recording at the moment. If, we do hope that you will mute and unmute yourself if you have questions. We hope this is, it's a smaller group today, but so it would be easier if you want to speak up, but no problems if you don't and you just want to use the chat. That is perfectly fine. We're gonna just again start with a little background of Cornerstones, but we do want to give you some options, and hopefully you can speak up and tell us maybe about some of the things that you've been doing for outdoor activities in your community, or some things you've even been thinking about but maybe be unsure about. We can talk about those as well. And we've seen some great things happening around the United States with some very creative outdoor activities. And we'll see, speaking of creativity, Wanda has been very creative in this time. And, you know, she's always been the librarian. I say, just make it happen. She makes it happen. She figures it out, and she's got a team of people, you know, I mean, she works, she uses her resources in her community. And I think that's just been super impressive. So if we have a little time, I'll just talk a little bit about resources we have. All right. I am going to, there we go. So again, most of you know a little bit about Cornerstones. You may have received a Cornerstones of Science Library Telescope from us in the past. I would definitely say that's been our flagship program. We've done a lot with science kits, especially with some different National Institute of Health and NASA at My Library projects for science kits, and some professional development around science kits, but also different STEM facilitation type of professional development we've worked in. Right now we have online, Cornerstones have helped develop stemlibraries.org, revupthefund.org, and of course we have cornerstonesofscience.org. So on all three of those platforms, STEM Libraries is really focused on professional development for librarians. Revupthefund.org is science activities and videos for the community. And then Cornerstones of Science is where you might find, you can learn more about all of what we do, and including the Library Telescope program. The things that we've started recently are the revupthefund.org, because we really saw a need to kind of somewhat get away from kits, touching kits and sending kits out, and move towards online activities. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Cornerstones of Science Safe and Sane Star Party idea here in a few minutes, but that's looking pretty positive as far as activities, new initiatives here with COVID. And just to show you a little map, it's kind of cool to see the reach of all this is specifically the Library Telescope program that Cornerstones has helped get over 500 telescopes in libraries around the United States. So if you want to know more about that, let us know for sure. All right, so outdoor activities in the community, and specifically either at the library or through a library program, you know, whether it's specifically that the library has developed, or a program that the library has worked with other organizations or with their town. We're talking here a little bit about, you know, now we know that they do need to be safe. They need to have masked and distanced participants. And I think probably one of the most important, oops, go back. Feel like my, here we go. Most important might be the registration. I'd love to hear more about how you guys are doing that to not only limit the number of participants, kind of manage those numbers, be in contact with them. You might have an email or a phone number. If you need to send them some information on the event, remind them about things to bring, such as their mask, or if you have to reschedule the event. And then also, I don't know if anybody's had to do this with the library so far, but for contact tracing, you may, in your community, have gone out to a restaurant recently, and I know that that's one of the things they're doing there. When you either make a reservation. Of course, they ask for a little more contact information than they've had in the past, I think. Or when you arrive, they typically might ask for a phone number or something like that. So just kind of curious, anybody have anybody doing any outdoor or other events that require registration right now? No. No, it took a little bit for us to kind of come up with our reservation system. In fact, it takes a little effort. Betta, anything in the chat from anybody on registration yet? Okay. So yeah, if anybody has any questions on that, you know, we've done it through our what do I want to call it? Oops. I'm all over the place here with these slides. Our website, of course, that seems the best, has been worked best for us so far, but we are still kind of new at it. So see somebody chatting here. Acuity. So Wanda says, yeah, she can talk about that here in a few minutes. I have to remember what our system is for that, but it seems to work good, and I can, you know, be in contact with folks through an email system, which I love. So I kind of grouped these outdoor, remember thinking of these as all outdoor activities, grouped them in by seasons. Where Cornerstones is located in Maine, and so it seems like everything we do here is focused around the weather. I grew up in Texas, in fact. So weather is an issue in Texas as well, but you know, some areas of the United States focus a lot more on weather than others. So I know when I've gone out to Arizona, not so much a factor, right? Other than just hot, hot and hotter sometimes. But I do know that, you know, we really, in many parts of the United States, you're really focused on the weather and the season. So Story Walks right now are seem very active. People are really looking to build these themselves or order them and put them in different areas, either at the library or in their town somewhere. Betta's going to talk to us here in just a minute about one that we have here in Maine. It's pretty nice. And again, focused on maybe a specific book that's maybe well known in that community, or a new one maybe that no one's ever really heard of, but kind of a connection to the area in some instances. Astronomy events. We hear from Orion and Celestron, which are two well-known telescope binocular companies. They're going gangbusters with sales on outdoor viewing tools. And I say that because there's a lot of different tools. There's telescopes, of course, it's kind of a go-to, but telescopes can be a bit of a daunting science instrument if you're not familiar with it, or if you're not ready to learn about it. Binoculars are a great way for people to start to learn how to view the night skies. And there's some other tools as well, learning just how to view the night sky with a sky chart that's available for that month, or kind of a dial system that you dial in the date to learn what objects are viewable in the night sky. So they folks are, there's a Facebook group right now that I'm involved with called Backyard Astronomy. So many new people are getting into viewing the night skies because it's something that you can do outdoors relatively. It's just never ending on what you can learn, right? With the seasons, things change. So a lot of fun, can be, you know, a bit of a challenge again, but can be a lot of fun for folks. And then holiday events with drive-throughs or stations. Right now, Halloween is coming up this Friday. I know a lot of towns and libraries are setting up a drive-through or different stations at different businesses where patrons don't really even get out of the car. They might be dressed up in their Halloween costumes and they drive up to a certain point and they get candy. And so those seem to be pretty popular for Halloween. I don't know if any of you guys have tried to do anything like that coming up. Please give us a little chat if that is something, or if you want to unmute yourself and let us know if there's anything like that you guys are involved with. This past summer and for coming up next spring and summer, drive-in movies seem to be working well for a number of libraries and other organizations are partnering and those types of things. Again, Wanda is going to talk to us here in a few minutes about her summer camp that went really, really well. And then thinking about distancing and having trivia and other types of activities where people are spaced out, physically spaced out, and having different trivia type of activities for folks. Mostly, I'm thinking of adults in that instance. Crafts and science experiences. The gardening piece I thought was great, where different stations or people are have their own little gardening space at the library to focus on. And plein air, I don't know if people know about that phrase. It just means open air painting, painting right on site, something instead of painting from a photograph, so. And finally, one of the last things I've seen recently, which has been interesting, is outdoor presentations. And libraries are investing in this like major speaker systems and microphone systems so that people can hear. I think that's one of the issues when you're so spaced 6 feet apart or more, depending on what the activity is, making sure people can hear what the presenter's talking about. So yes, so investing in speaker systems where typically you wouldn't really necessarily need one seems to be an interesting piece for outdoor activities. All right, so Betty, you want to speak a little bit about, this is a story walk we have here in Maine.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Yeah, Sarah asked me to drive down this road to the Maine Audubon Society, which is just close to my house and a little bit outside of Portland, Maine. They have done many story walks in the past, and I actually went there looking for one that was going to be about monarch butterflies, and that one was not up anymore. And instead, in a different location, they had this really sweet little brown bat story that I'd never read. It was probably just a total of 6 or 7 different signs up along a beautiful nature trail. And it was a very relevant topic. We have bats in Maine. This actually talked about how bats are getting sick with the white nose syndrome, I think it was called, and talked about, how scientists have worked to help bats and what people can do, what humans can do to help support bats. But what was kind of interesting about the experience is not only did I get to see this and read this cool nature walk, but while I was at Audubon, I happened to see a beekeeper come all dressed up in her hazmat suit, tending the bees. I saw a huge flock of wild turkeys. I saw an American kestrel flying overhead. Audubon had bird feeders out, and there were just birds everywhere. There were old apple trees dropping apples. You could actually smell the aroma of the apples. There were groups of people sitting around, socially distanced in circles, having conversations, and it looked like some meetings were going on. So it actually ended up being a really neat kind of experience, cultural experience. And I just imagined, if I was there with 10 or so kids socially distanced, that they would get much more than just the storybook. They would get to participate in this whole sort of ecosystem that goes on at Maine Audubon. So it was just really special, and the book was beautiful. Just you could see from the illustrations, so beautifully done. And I know that they're happening all over Maine. One thing I also would say, in Maine we have a saying, there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. So, you know, we just learn to try to be outside in any weather whatsoever. And I think these storyboards do stay up all winter. And, you know, kids and adults can go out there with their snowshoes or their boots and with their rain gear and snow gear on. So, yeah, that's life in Maine.
Yeah. And this book is, I see if I can go back. You can see this is the Island Port Press. They're very well known here in Maine, and it looks is a collaboration between, I believe, between them and the Maine Audubon. So, so yeah, these are, I think, somewhat available to either purchase directly, like these type of storyboards that are large, or you can, you know, make your own. It sounds like they change, you know, maybe they change at this site based on what Betta was saying for, you know, like the monarch butterflies, this bat story. I know there's many others that have been popular in different areas. So I just wanted to kind of present this. It just looks so beautiful, the pictures she took too, you know. It's kind of the setting. It's, you know, fall right now here, and just the kind of just as a good match for these storyboards. You can see how large they are, and meaningful, right? Purposeful for this specific area. So I think that's just a good idea to help, you know, increase awareness of these. If you have some of them, I think, just like Betta said, getting more aware that they're around. I didn't really know that these were there, and so she's like, oh, I think we have one over at Audubon. So not only increasing awareness, but working with your town or working with your local Audubon or other organizations to get these up in your community, because I think these are going to be more and more important to get folks interested, coming outside, coming to the library, you know, books that are purposeful for your community as well. So, all right. So to switch gears just a little bit, I just want to briefly say that Cornerstones has started the Safe and Sane Star Party idea. We're piloting it. It was supposed to take place last Friday here in Maine. Saturday was the rain date, but both Friday and Saturday were cloudy. So that was tough. But the good thing about it was that since it was by registration, we had everybody's email, and I was able to be in contact with them. We had about 25 people registered, which we thought was a pretty good amount of folks. We were kind of limiting it to somewhere between 35 and 50 people tops. So the registration would cut off if we got to a certain number. So we kind of worked hard on that registration piece, having people understand that they would need to, and also sending the information to folks once they registered and before they registered, having them understand that they would need to be masked the whole time, they would need to distance themselves, all of those pieces. So we now have, we're working hard to reschedule this for next week after the 3rd. Kind of get that over with. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the clear dark sky charts. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these, but these are kind of a 48-hour window look at of your specific area to see how clear the night skies will be, and the cloudiness, the viewing conditions. And so these are all things that the astronomy clubs use to gauge when they should be viewing, because they don't just pull out all of their equipment for nothing. They make sure it's going to be worth their while. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to regroup and look at that. I mean, we were looking at that chart beforehand too, but we kind of wanted to schedule out so we could market the event and everything. So these are the things that here in Maine we have to do. We know we have to do when there's possible weather issues. So everybody was very thankful that they received an email from me saying that it was rescheduled, and they're looking forward to to the event when it happens. So, yeah, I'm just reading the chat here from Barb about the storyboards. Yes, story walks. Yeah, saying that I think all you guys can see the chat. But Barb was saying they're good to circulate to preschools and elementary schools for their outdoor learning, for sure. All right. So next we have Wanda is going to speak about some of her outdoor activities. And I think, Wanda, I'm going to have to do the slides for you. I'm not sure if you're able to move the slides. I apologize about that, but
oh, and I guess I should unmute myself, right?
You should what?
I should unmute myself. I was talking and
Oh, were you?
Oh, I'm muted. That's no good.
Yeah.
So registration, we have started doing quite a bit of outdoor programming. I'm going to talk about one program that we did, our rocketry camp, which we did this past summer, which was out in the middle of nowhere. And then I'm going to talk about, another one that we did on library property. One of our branches is very fortunate in that they have basically the library owns the entire city block. And so the library itself sits on one corner, and then we have this giant territory that's kind of a cleared field. So it's kind of a nice little benefit. That branch is all our favorite branch right now because it's the only branch we can really do much with. But we're going to start off with some rocketry camp. So we've developed a really good partnership with our local university, particularly the engineering department. And so nothing that we do, we have done on our own, because a lot of what we do goes way beyond my level of scientific knowledge and expertise. So when I get a wild idea of something I want to do, I really start looking around my community to find who has that specific knowledge that we could partner together to do something. And what do each of us have that we can bring to the table? One of the things that we use to do this, of course, because you can't just send people rocketry supplies and expect them to build a rocket. So we had to put together a course, actually, because this is a week-long summer camp. And so we were doing the instruction all distance education. And there is actually a product out there designed for libraries called Niche Academy. It's a wonderful product if you have a makerspace or you need to do training, and you want to be able to do things like have people submit files for you to review, or you want to do quizzes and have assessment and things like this. So this is like, you might be familiar with Blackboard or Moodle or some of those other softwares that are used in colleges or schools. This is the same sort of thing, only it's designed for libraries, and it's called Niche Academy. That's really fabulous piece of software. It let us do what we needed to do for our curriculum. Then we did something a little different. We had family units work. So we provided rocketry supplies for a family to work together to kind of build through the curriculum to build these rockets. The program was designed for 6th grade and up, but we had a lot of families really get involved, and we provided some more basic rocket builds for younger children. So these were families, and each camp, we did 2 sessions. Each camp had about 20 families per session. It's also important because people are going to come up with questions. So we used another software called GroupMe, or an app. And this allowed us to communicate with the families. We could communicate, you know, approved rocket designs, we could answer questions, we could share encouragement, and we could allow the families also to work together in Group Me and answer and respond to one another. The beautiful thing about Group Me is it keeps all of the privacy, it protects people's privacy. So you're not giving out individual phone numbers or emails or any other kinds of contact information. This sort of takes all of that and masks it so that people could easily communicate together. So it was a wonderful app, again, a completely free app that we just took advantage of for this program. And of course, it's no fun to build a rocket if you don't get to launch that rocket. And this was the outdoor portion of our program. Families were assigned a time slot and a day for their rocket launch. That way, we were only dealing with one family at a time. And I think you can go forward now. Maybe? Or can I? No, I don't think I can.
All right, I'm trying here. Hold on.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So just very quickly, this is a view of Niche Academy. So you can see kind of how we organized it. And you can see my progress through the camp. So we had day 1, day 2, day 3. And then because we had 20 families, it's about 110 degrees in July, which was when we were doing this camp. And we didn't want to be out there all day. So we had 2 launch days built in. Families, we split them in half, and they would work on the Mission to Mars module or launch their rocket, and then we switch the days. So there's only 1 launch day. There were 2 launch days, but that was so that we could get all 20 families through the launch. And you can go ahead. This is was just kind of showing how we organized each day. And then this is an example of a day of camp. So if you look here, this is a video, it's a YouTube video that the university engineering department, again, they have that expertise. So they did the videos, they sent us the content, and then we uploaded everything into Niche Academy. So they have an overview of the engineering design process. A student would watch this video, and then they just work through each day of camp. So each time they work through a segment, then it tracks their progress. And you can see these are all some of the lessons. So we had, of course, the overall goal of building a stable rocket that they could launch, but they did all of these little exercises along the way, and we provided all the materials for that. And so they had a dart challenge, and they have all of this lesson. So they're working through the lessons. One of the interesting things we learned is that kids don't necessarily work through lessons the way you think they're going to work through it. So one of the big pieces of our rocketry camp that we kind of had to retool for our second session was mentors. We had to really add some mentors to keep people on track and working through in the order we wanted them to go through the content. So that was just something interesting that we discovered. You think, I'm going to put this out at day 1, and it's going to be step 1, step 2, step 3. But what we found is that they wanted to do step 5, and then do step 1, and then maybe 3. And so that was just a learning curve, something we learned through this process. So on the launch day, the day that people came in person, participants and staff, they completed health checks. Everybody wore masks. We maintained social distance. We broke the launch process up into multiple stations, and each family spent total about an hour to an hour and a half from their arriving at the launch day to their finish. And then we scheduled those families 30 minutes apart. So you had, one group arrive, they start working through the process, and then another group arrives. And that allowed us to sanitize all the stations between families. And so you can, there you go. So this is our start station. This is the safety check and motor installation. So the two staff people, the gentleman in the black shirt and the woman working with him, they're one household. So they're a married couple. They live together. They could be together, you know, working that closely together, no problem. And you'll notice everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's social distance. You see that hand sanitizer and those wipes, and we took that very, very seriously because we are doing this right in the middle of our big giant July surge. So we very strictly enforced all of these distancing protocols that we put into place to make this in-person program happen. And this was our only in-person program the summer were these launch days. So this is station 2. We installed an altimeter, did the pre-flight data, and went over field safety at this particular station. Again, everybody's masked, really enforcing that social distancing. And this is station 3. So this is the actual launch. This is, again, it's Texas, it's July. It was probably about 105 degrees, 110 degrees in this field. The gentleman in the cowboy hat is our engineering department head, Dr. Kitch, who is a insane nut when it comes to rocketry. I think the hotter it is, the more excited he gets about rocketry. He could actually live out in that field all day. All of the rest of us were just exhausted by noon, but he was just like ready to launch more rockets. So it really helps, I guess, to have that person in the community with that kind of drive and passion, because he really makes this particular program happen in a really big way. He's so excited to share his knowledge. So basically what he did at the launch, he shares all sorts of, you know, kind of physics lessons about rocketry. And then they put their rockets on the launch pads. These are launch pads that we actually built at our library in the makerspace. We provided all the materials for it, and then the university engineering department built them, and we can reuse these year after year after year. So this is our 3rd year, by the way, to do this camp, but this is our 1st year to do it kind of with this distance education model. But you can see they're getting their rocket ready to launch, getting it all hooked up there.
Wanda, can I ask?
Sure.
Before the family showed up on the launch day, did they have any idea if their rocket would work beforehand? No. Okay.
We didn't. And I think we had one maybe that didn't launch. So, but we wanted to make sure everybody got to launch a rocket. So we had a backup. We had one rocket where they had not, there was not enough space to put the motor in. So there's basically a ring that gets glued inside the tube, and you have to be able to fit that rocket motor up in there. And if it doesn't, then you can't. The things that we checked, like safety, we checked things like were the fins on straight. We could do a lot of emergency repair on site, but there was that one. I think there was only one that we just could not launch that day. So by and large, they wound up, you know, being fairly.
I've seen some video. It's very impressive. It's.
And then we have our day 4, or I'm sorry, our station 4, and this is where they've launched. There's an altimeter inside the rocket, and so they bring the altimeter and their launched rocket over here to the data gate for data gathering and debrief. So they can gather all the data off their altimeter that tells them how high it went and how fast it went, and all of that data. And you can see here's a family. We had, 4 from this one family who built and launched rockets. So then there's a lot of, bragging and being able to compare. Well, mine went higher, mine, went further, all of that. So, and we have this, manned by one person, and after this family leaves, then it's all, wiped down and sanitized. So this worked remarkably well, but it was a partnership program. We really do all work together to make things like this happen. So our second program we do was International Observe the Moon Night. And I didn't take photos of this because it happened at night, and I really just didn't think about it. But we did September 26th.
I know, right? Yeah, right at the end of September this year. Yeah.
I was determined to do International Observe the Moon Night, one way or the other. And so in August, I started asking questions of Orion and different people. Is it possible to hook up a camera to a telescope so that no one has to approach a telescope and project an image onto a screen? And I got a lot of different answers that I thought, I think I can do this. So we're going to go for it. So some things that we did, you can use safe, there's a water soluble paint. They use it to mark football fields with. I got it from Lowe's, and basically what we did was we marked out on the, in that big field area, 8-foot squares that were each spaced 6 feet apart. And then people registered through Acuity to attend, and they registered with, and each was assigned a spot. So they had a square, each square was assigned a number, and you went to the spot marked with your number. And then their family group could stay in their little square. And of course we required masks. And so this is an interesting program. And I think the point with this particular program is that it can scale up or down financially with a budget. This is kind of, we spent some money buying some equipment. We bought this little camera that fits in the eyepiece of a tracking telescope. And you really do need a tracking telescope. I think they're called GoTo. Orion has a brand, I think it's a GoTo scope is what it's called. But it's basically a computerized mount, and it allows the camera to take pictures or do a video feed as the telescope moves across the sky. You can also use this for some really cool deep space photographs with another extra step. But if you're just wanting to view Saturn or the moon, and project it, this is a really good way to do it. And it eliminates that need for anybody to even remotely approach a telescope, because you can project it. And that's basically what we did. Let's see.
All right.
So do you need a tracking telescope, camera, screen, and projector to host a star party? And of course, you don't really need that. There's a lot of resources that you can use out there. And in this particular program, we did a little bit of everything because it was a 2-hour program. And so we did a lot of different things. But one of the things we also did is we just used the projector and the computer and NASA resources for a nighttime show and tell story time. So one of the images that we use that I always like to show, I think this is a fascinating image. This is an image from Hubble. It is a deep field photograph of a point in the sky that is empty. And when they focused the Hubble telescope on this little point in the sky that they thought was empty, and left it, you know, kind of filming for days, or taking photo upon photo upon photo, you can see they discovered that it's not empty at all. There's all of these really galaxies. This was a huge discovery back in the early 90s. But we kind of did that show and tell where we talked about things like this, images like this, that really changed the perception of the night sky. And we just did that with a projector and a computer and a screen. But we discovered actually during this program that probably the wall would have been easier. We actually had to have a big blow up screen, but we could have just done this on the wall. So you don't even really need that. So if you don't have that, there's still something you can do. One of the things you might consider is a laser pointer, a green laser pointer. But I do have the caveat here I want to add is that if you want to do something like this, there's some very strict rules, and it depends on where you live. There are some safety and regulations that can go in play here, because these are the kind of laser pointers that can affect pilots if you accidentally shine them in some place you shouldn't shine them, but they work really, really well to point out constellations. So one of our Night Sky Network partners that helped us with this particular program discussed the myths and legends around different constellations and pointed them out, you know, in the night sky. And then we kind of had a back and forth discussion of some of the properties of the stars that comprise each of the constellations. So it was part storytelling, part science. So that was a fun element of this particular program as well. And then finally,
Oops.
oh,
I think that was it.
was that it? I thought I
think
had one
so.
more.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. The other thing I was going to say is if you don't want to use, you know, a laser pointer, you can certainly just, you have the night sky, it's there in front of you. You can certainly use a large object like the moon, for example. We didn't have to have that projector and telescope and camera. In fact, when I started my portion of it, we were still trying to kind of get it working because it came in the day of the event. So I didn't have a lot of time to troubleshoot this piece of equipment. And so we kind of just, you know, pointed to the moon and talked about, you know, what the moon is made of and some recent discoveries, and kind of did some storytelling with some of the Apollo missions. And we talked about even some of the conspiracy theories around it. And then we had a question answer session with the audience, and they asked, you know, all sorts of interesting questions. I think at the time, you know, they had just discovered phosphine on, you know, in the clouds of Venus. And so we talked about, you know, life, is there life out there? Those kinds of questions. But we had a really good discussion back and forth. So it was very, these two programs also kind of opened my mind, I guess, or ideas about, okay, there's a lot of things we can do here. Especially with that field. So other programs we're considering, we've started, we have a movie night for Halloween. We're doing slightly spooky movies, and we have those boxes drawn on that field, and people come and bring their blanket or their lawn chairs or whatever, and each person's assigned their little plot. That has been completely full. I think we've kept it to 18 families, 18 units that live together that can fit in an 8-foot square box. And we're doing a story time, a children's story time outdoors. Same concept, keeping everybody, you know, separate in their own little box, separate but together at that branch. It is getting a little bit colder. So we're not sure, you know, how long. The weather in Texas is weird. You know, as I said, we just had an ice storm, but we can have, it can also be 80 or 90. I mean, I think this week it's supposed to be probably about 80 degrees by the end of the week. So, you know, you never know what it's going to be like. So,
Wanda, you have a couple questions
Sure.
in here. One from Deborah asking about open registration versus RSVPing, and if having an open system encourages more people than rather an RSVP system. I think this is an interesting topic. Maybe we can spend a minute talking about it. Probably
Sure.
real pros and cons for each approach.
So we normally for something like this, in normal times, we would just be like, hey, come join us. We wouldn't really do any kind of registration. But in this time, because there is the worry that we would get overwhelmed, and our space science programs are extremely popular, as Sarah can attest, because she attended one. It was they
phenomenal. It was last year's international,
Yeah.
the year before's international Observe the Moon Night. Wow, it was great.
And they're very popular. So so we did feel like we needed to do a RSVP registration system. We use a product, a software called Acuity. They actually do have a free version of it. We need a little bit more for what we do, so we do a fee version of it. But I think even their fee version of it's like $130 a year. It's pretty inexpensive.
Yeah, I mean, it feels weird, right, Wanda? We used to always like, oh, I hope we get enough people, to some of these
Right.
programs. Maybe not some of the space science ones, because we know, but now it feels a little bit like we're on the other end of like, oh, if we can, let's run this program with, of course we want to be safe and distance,
Right.
and so it's a lot smaller numbers, and so it kind of feels a little bit flipped of almost hoping you don't get too many that register, then
Right.
you kind of have to turn some people away, right? Or close out a registration. And
so we do limit, and also with the system is it lets us say how many we can have, like Sarah was saying, y'all had a number.
mm-hmm.
And then it won't allow registration beyond that. We do the same thing where I think for the story time, they set it at, like I said, what did I say, 18 family units,
Yeah.
something
Mm-hmm.
like that. But people, the beauty with this, with Acuity, is that people can also go in and cancel themselves as well, and then that frees up a slot. And we try and encourage that. You're always going to have people register that don't attend. It's just
right
part of it. But we also encourage people to, we send out reminders, and then we also encourage people, hey, if you can't attend, please, cancel so that you can give up your slot to someone else.
And Wanda, can you see this other question on chat? It's what kind of speaker projector do you use for your outdoor movies?
It's a good question. It's an Epson. I know the projector's an Epson. And I did a little bit of research because I had a little bit of money, but I needed to do the most bang for my buck. I want to say that my projector was an Epson.
I think that's what we have too. Yeah.
And it was one, the research I did, it was one that was rated well for outdoor use. That was going to have a pretty, at where you might be dark, but you might have some street lights, or you might have some ambient lights around. So it was a pretty bright bulb. And
electricity. Just ran extension cords, or
yes. Extension cords and plug bars. I cannot remember the name of the speaker system, but it's a powered speaker system that has stands. There's two stands. They weren't terribly expensive. I want to say they were maybe a couple $100 on Amazon. Let's say they're like Rockport, but I think that's not quite right. Rocksport or something like that. They wouldn't be fantastic if you had a huge amount of noise around you, but but they're adequate.
Yeah. Barb also asked about drive-in movies, and have you done drive-in movies, Wanda? Or
so we actually bought, because that was one of our ideas. That was one of the things we were going to do. We were going to do a drive-in movie in a parking lot, kind of down the street, a county-owned parking lot. And we made the mistake, I guess, of informing our risk manager for our whole county that we were going to be doing a drive-in theater, and got informed we would not be doing that.
Why? Just why? Do you know why?
It was how are you going to control traffic flow, and she had safety concerns. Now she will let us launch rockets in the height of summer.
Yeah, you haven't shown her any of those videos. I know, Wendy.
But a drive-in movie was a bridge too far.
Okay.
So, but our plan was, and we did buy, actually, the other piece of equipment was an FM transmitter. So you can get an FM transmitter. This allows people to tune in to a radio station in their car for the sound. So an FM transmitter, your screen, and your projector are kind of the three things that you need. You don't have to do speakers for that if you have that transmitter.
Neat. Yeah, I know a local movie house here. It's kind of an older movie house. They've partnered with a museum, and I guess you would drive to the museum. So it's talking about parking issues. I think you had to be registered, of course, and drive to this museum parking lot, which wasn't sort of out in the open, or I guess maybe to what your person was saying, issues of traffic flow. But yeah, it was pretty well regulated, and of course the spaces were divvied out where each car could go, and people weren't allowed to, some of them weren't allowed to get out of their cars. Others I've seen that will have like a food truck available for snacks and stuff. So I think it just depends on the site and who's running it.
If you ask your risk manager for permission,
Ouch.
So,
well, thank you, Wanda. That's great. Yeah. And I think, as you're talking through this, Wanda has been doing these types of camps and other space science pieces for a while. And I think I kind of can see this translating to other sciences, other activities. So don't feel like, okay, geez, I got to start this whole telescope. Night sky viewing piece. I just think it just translates a lot of the collaborations you do, care and handling of your programs, maybe what it takes that summer camp, kind of what it takes to make it successful. And thanks for your sort of lessons learned as well, because it can be easy when you sort of have it down, a system that you've done for 2 years, and now you have to completely switch gears.
And there were some things, like I said, from that we learned that we would definitely still keep. For example, the launch day. The first 2 years we did it, we had 30, 40 kids out in a field in the middle of the Texas heat.
Yeah,
that I think if we did a launch day even without COVID, we would still do the way we did it this time. It just worked so much better, and you don't have 40 kids dying of heat in the Texas heat. So there were things that we would still do that we think we learned.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I think we're right at the top of the hour. I know some folks need to leave, so I appreciate your time. And if you're up for it, we have one more webinar this fall, coming towards the end of this month, and really kind of trying to get kind of like a cohort of librarians who are really interested in science to kind of come together and see how the library and community can work better for you as someone who's really interested in science, or how you can help other parts of the community to help bring science more into your specific lives. Because I know talking with Wanda at one point, you know, sometimes some of the library conferences and other librarian pieces just aren't enough for, for, you know, taking it to the next step. So we'd love to just talk more about that and see how we can all kind of work together to move it all forward. So, all right, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Bye.
Oops. My dog.
Bye.